Good morning and good evening wherever you are. This is Ellie from USC. Welcome to the series of USC graduate program event, which will help you to learn cutting-edge knowledge in different academic areas and inspire you to think beyond. Today's webinar is the 140 USC event. It's wonderful to see all of you can join this event. The topic of today's webinar is, but will there be authentic Chinese food? And other important questions to ask. From the curious topic, I have a hunch that it will be a very interesting webinar. So let me introduce our today's guest speakers, Professor Exo Sonso and Professor Caroline. Professor Exo is an associate professor of Department of Molecular Microbiology and Immunology, Associate Dean of Biomedical Master's Programs, Program Director of MMI Departmental Master's Program, Faculty Fellow of USC Center for Excellence in Teaching, and the Course Director of INTD 531 Cell Biology. And Professor Carroll is a Director of Translational Biotechnology Program, Associate Professor of Clinical Translational Genomics, and Research Ethics Coordinator of Graduate Programs. Welcome, Professor Exo and Professor Carroll. Before starting the speech, dear audience, we will have a 15 to 20 minutes Q&A section after the speech. Whether you are joining this webinar via Zoom or through our live streaming platforms, please feel free to leave your questions in the chat box at any time. We will try our best to get as many questions as we can. And kindly remind to our Zoom audience that this webinar will be recorded. So please mute yourself during the presentation for the good webinar quality. Thank you very much. Now let's start our session, and I will pass it over to Professor Exo. Welcome, Professor Exo.
Thank you very much for this kind introduction, and I'm very happy to be here. I hope this will be very informative and entertaining and interesting to everybody in the audience. I brought a few slides. Let me put them up. This is a view of our Keck Medical School, School of Medicine of USC, University of Southern California. We are located in Los Angeles. And today we will have a very informal presentation about graduate programs, but more importantly about the food. So here is a little outline of the agenda. So for all of you, this is what we would like to do tonight. And if you wonder about this statue, this is the unofficial mascot of USC. It's a Trojan warrior that signifies the spirit and the bravery and the inquisitive nature of what we have to offer here at USC. So for this program, I will do a brief introduction, an overview of the educational opportunities here at USC in the field of biomedicine. I will also include URLs to the different programs. We will briefly, very briefly talk about PhD programs, master's programs, and pre-master's programs. So these are programs that USC offers for students in preparation of master's programs. And I will spend approximately 10 minutes on these first few items. And then we have the great pleasure tonight to have a very special guest, my valued colleague here at USC, Professor Caroline. And she will add a few personal vignettes in her experience, and she will talk about, but will there be authentic food, Chinese type? Yes, and other important questions. And at the end, we will have plenty of time for question and answers. So feel free to type into the chat or speak up and ask your questions in person, and we will make an effort to address all of them. In addition, I'd like to remind you, if you can, feel free to take screenshots, although I'm not entirely sure whether it will be possible on your system, but feel free to take screenshots. We will also put a few links into the chat. So what about USC? We are one of the world's largest private universities. What is shown here in this photo, this is our university president, Carol Folt, PhD, and she's doing a fantastic job directing and running and taking care of all of us here at USC. As you can see from the total number of students, we are a fairly large organization, 50,000 total students, about 21,500 undergraduate and even more graduate and professional students. What is remarkable about these numbers, if you take a closer look here, we have nearly 12,000 students from abroad. Okay, so there's a very large fraction of international students from about 135 countries. So this is probably more international than the Olympic Games. More than 130 countries participate here. We have about 6,400 from China. So you see that among the total student population, we have more than 10% from China. So a large fraction of our student population is from China. And we really pride ourselves to have this cosmopolitan diversity from all these different countries. Everybody is welcome, and it makes for a really great mix. And also the professors like to work with students from all different countries. It's really fun to do that. And we have 28,800 faculty and staff. So you see the number of faculty and staff is, well, it's nearly one-to-one, not quite, but we have a lot of faculty and staff to support the operation. So in a nutshell, if I had to say in just one slide why I am so proud of our graduate programs, I think this would be it. I think we have a very nice combination of coursework with hands-on biomedical research. So our students in most programs are really encouraged to join laboratories, participate in hands-on work, and not only learn the theory in the classroom and in seminars, but also apply it. So there's a great opportunity, and in essence, the hands-on research goes along with the research that's actively going on in laboratories. So these are not laboratories where students practice. No, these are real ongoing research studies where students are welcome to join in, participate, and learn while they are going. I would like to show you a few photos of how our campus looks like. This is a photo of the Norris Comprehensive Cancer Center. This is one of the main buildings. There's another one on this side. There's a third one behind here. So cancer research is very big here on our campus. And the beauty is that we also have clinics here, hospitals. So there's a nice translational aspect where physicians treating patients, researchers working in the laboratories collaborate and take advantage of all the resources that are available. And we have great studies going from the bench to the bedside and from the bedside to the bench. And we always welcome students to participate and get involved in these studies as much as they possibly can. And most of our students, especially the master students, they take these opportunities as a stepping stone to further PhD programs, for example, because as you probably know, and we might get to this later, in order to be successful in an application to a PhD program, the institutions would like to see some hands-on experience and training of the candidate. And a master's program, for example, can be a terrific stepping stone to acquire such skills and then take it as a jumping board onto the next level, or be attractive for university recruits to participate in, biotech recruits in order to participate in a biotech company with certain types of experience. Here's a photo of the Zilka Neurogenetic Institutes. It's one of the newer buildings on campus. This is the Stevens Neuroimaging and Informatics Institute. So neuroimaging and neurobiology is also one of the key emphasis points here in the university, among many others. So Parkinson's disease is being studied, Alzheimer's, and so forth. And then Center for Regenerative Medicine and Stem Cell Research. Of course, stem cell is a very hot topic, has been for a while now. And we have quite a few laboratories. And this is an example also that, even in the evening, you see this is kind of a shot in the evening, probably after sundown. The lights are still on in the labs. We encourage our students, take advantage of what we have to offer. You do not have to go home at 6 o'clock in the evening. You are very welcome to stay in the lab as long as you wish. This is an inside view of some of the newer buildings. You see, we have this open lab space that are not separated, where the labs are not separated by walls, but this open design encourages students to interact with each other, talk to each other about science, hopefully, or maybe also for some endeavors on the weekend, who knows. But student engagement in labs is very much emphasized for many of our programs, not for all of them, but for many. So for those of you who might be interested really in learning hands-on research, this is a great place to be. So the educational opportunities are summarized here. We have undergraduate degree programs, summer research programs. As I mentioned, we have a pre-master's program in preparation for MS programs. This can be also very helpful, for example, for expanding language skills, because oftentimes it happens that our international students that are interested in joining our university, sometimes the language skills are not yet quite adequate. So the pre-master's programs also emphasize language skills that are important, of course, in order to participate in all the educational opportunities. We have about 20 different health and biomedical master's degree programs. I show you in a little bit, I show you a slide with some of them. Professional degree programs, we have several PhD programs, and of course, every medical school has an MD program, otherwise there wouldn't be a medical school. But I can tell you right now, our medical school has more PhD and master students than they have medical students. Okay, so even though we are a medical school, we have more graduate students in the PhD and the master's programs. Here's a summary, one slide, quick shot of the PhD programs in our biomedical sciences. You're welcome to take a screenshot. I think we can also put this URL into the chat. We have 6 different PhD programs. Now, the beauty of our PhD programs is this, that the students that apply to the program, they apply to PIPs. PIPs stands for PhD programs in biomedical and biological sciences. And it is an umbrella entry portal. What that means is when students apply to the PhD program, they do not right away pick one of these 6 PhD programs, but rather they apply to PIPs, which is the umbrella above all of them. And then during the first year, the accepted students will do several rotations, actually 3. They will do 3 rotations during the first year And at the end of the first year, then the student will decide which program of these 6 do I really want to join, which lab would I like to participate. So this system has the nice advantage that students who are successfully accepted into the PIPS program, they have a full year to get to know USC, get to know our medical school, get to know more about the 6 different PhD programs before they decide which one to pick. So they can really make an informed decision. So during their first year, they get to know many of the professors, many of the labs, and so forth. And then at the end of the first year, then they decide which program to go to. So this is PIPS, this is the PhD program. Now, these are the master's programs. Feel free to take a screenshot. There's the URL right up here. I would like to point out maybe a few of those. There's biochemistry and molecular medicine, experimental and molecular pathology, and in particular, molecular microbiology and immunology. I'm pointing out this one because I am the course director of this program, and it's a 2-year program similar to experimental molecular pathology, similar to biochemistry and molecular medicine. And many of these programs, the 2-year programs in particular, put a lot of emphasis on hands-on research. We also have 1-year programs, but the 1-year programs, you know, it's very hard to get exposed to research, hands-on research, and it would not be possible to write a thesis, or it would be very difficult to write a thesis in 1 year. So this is why most of these programs are 2 years. And I can also point out translational biotechnology, which is another terrific master's program. This is directed by my colleague here, Professor Lin, that you will talk to you in a little bit. So the both of us are very heavily involved in master's programs in particular and graduate programs in general. And at the end, when there are questions, also we can provide a lot more information on these programs. So these are the master's programs. This briefly is a link to USC's International Academy. And the International Academy is the pre-master's program that emphasizes preparation for master's programs. It includes intensive English learning, English language learning to prepare students to take the next level in our program. So please take another screenshot. And I see that, Amy, thank you so much for putting into the chat the links to these different programs. So for those of you who have access to the chat, make sure you check the chat with the links of these programs. So in summary, your future can start here at USC. And we welcome all inquiries and all applications. Here are the websites again. These are the 3 websites that I presented to you. Feel free to check them out. There are also links on these websites to obtain further information if you need further information. So it's all out there for you to take it. And as I said, USC is a multinational, multi-distinguished university, and we certainly would welcome all of your applications and have you on board. So having said that, I will stop my share and I will transfer now the further section to my dear colleague, Professor Lin, who has interesting things to say as well. So Professor Lin has been here at USC for quite a few years, and she knows the ins and outs, and she knows the graduates programs very well. So I think we're very fortunate today, Carol, to have you here. And please, without further ado, take over.
Thank you. 大家好，我是林素娟，我是美国南加大 Translational Biotechnology 硕士班主任。今天非常感谢 USC International Academy， 感谢 Ellie， 感谢 Shonso Professor 给我这个机会来跟大家讨论留学美国需要考虑的重点。年前我想要来申请美国学校来留学的时候，我的父母亲有很多问题，其中有个问题是，那你吃饭怎么办？那我母亲在讲吃饭，她不是讲说这种大餐，她最关心的是平常吃饭怎么办。所以我从这里我就开始换成英文来做今天的讲座。So when I was thinking about coming to United States to study, my parents has a lot of questions, have a lot of concern. My mother was really worrying about how am I going to do in terms of eating. Well, I didn't care. I wasn't thinking about it because at that time, what I really care about is very, very far from food. So today, I hope that I will share with you my experience. Unfortunately, I'm not going to talk too much about food, but many other things that we really should talk about. But the idea is that it actually turned out to be a big deal about eating if I care about food. And my mom will be really very happy to know that after moving and living in 4 major cities in the United States for the past many decades, I am right now in the best place for Chinese food. And Chinese food is much better here than even in New York City. But so much about food. What I would like to really share with you is by starting to talk about this thing called the hero's journey. So this is by a scholar called Joseph Campbell. He looked at many different mythology storyline, and he find out that there is a similar path for all the heroes there. So Joseph Campbell in the hero's journey say that we start out with, we are in a known world. And there's a call to adventure. We want to really go out. And so the heroes start to really try to go there. The first thing the hero needs to do is they need to have a mentor, need to ask, figure out things. Eventually, the hero cross the threshold to go into the unknown world. And in the unknown world, there are a lot of challenges. There are a lot of temptations. And what hero really need to really go through that is need a lot of new friends, new allies, and new mentors. The hero will go through the whole thing, most of the story goes in like that. And then you will encounter terrible things, abyss, death. But then from there, that hero will find out new things and transform and become rebirth. And beyond that, hero will also receive a lot of reward as well to find out that there are new things that need to be readjusted, need to atone, need to think about, repent. And then after the hero goes through the whole thing, the hero will go back to the known world. And as the hero going back to the world that he knows, hero changed and become the masters of 2 worlds, both the known and the unknown. And this kind of journey is actually seen in many of the stories that we heard about Star Wars, Harry Potter, the Odyssey. They all go through this kind of thing. So what I'm going to try to do today is to try to share with you the journey of going through that. Now, my final return, my final destination may not be the same as yours, but I will believe that the process of the journey that we can have a lot to share about. So my journey is that starting from the known world. And so I graduated from National Taiwan University, got my bachelor's degree in agricultural chemistry. Okay. I want to talk with you today again that the consideration is far beyond just graduate study, because I think that your long-term outcome is going to dictate how you approach the graduate study. So when we're thinking about important issue to think about, we need to think beyond, think about long-term, okay? But anyway, this is my known world. This is where I feel comfortable, but I want to go out. So I start to really go to my mentor, and I really ask the question, right? And so that today, again, that I will share with you the question I ask and the question that I did not ask, but I really should have asked about, so that I did not have to go through a lot of difficulty. Feel free to really write down your own question as we go along, and then we can talk about it later. Anyway, the question that I do, the first thing to do is soul searching. We have to really ask, I ask, what do you want to do? Now, you're here today, so I assume that it's about what you want to do is about graduate study in the US, but why? Why do you want to do that? And I mean, why do you want to do that? Not why does your family say? Not what your friends say, not what people say that you want to do. You want to ask, why? Do you want to get a job? Do you want to make money? Do you want to become famous? Do you want to leave a legacy? Now, we have the saying, right? We say, 虎死留名，人死留名. So what do you really want at the end of your career, right? We tend to focus more about the logistic, how to do it, where to do it, when to do it, right? But you need to do your soul searching, because your soul, your heart, is going to guide how you're going to do the logistic here. And here I kind of divided the two things into half, but we know that, again, that they are all interrelated. Okay? So how do we really go about that? When I first crossed the threshold, go into the unknown world, I end up in Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland to get my PhD in biochemistry. I decided on Case Western. And so this is the soul searching part. Why? It's because I want to see the world. I love biochemistry. I also love classical music. I want to really be able to go to symphony orchestra. Cleveland happens to have a famous Cleveland orchestra there. So those are the soul searching part. But there are, of course, other logistic part. Well, one of them is a Case Western, despite me flunk out organic chemistry once, they still accept me, and they gave me a scholarship. So that is the logistic part of it. So I go through that, thinking about what I really want to do. Of course, I meet challenges. The first challenge is that Cleveland, Ohio, there's no Chinese food. The only Chinese food restaurant is 15 miles away in the very, very sketchy part of the town, and I didn't have a car, and there's no Chinese grocery store to speak of, right? But I didn't care. That's really not what I really want to do, so I was fine. But it's not so much so for some of the other students, some of my fellow international students, they were miserable. And so what they would need to do is that they actually need to band together every weekend. They have a caravan and go to this one and only grocery store to buy some Chinese food, come back, cook, and we'll eat together. That's all fine for Chinese food, but then they have limited social circle there. So that is really the challenge, is that if you really love and you need Chinese food, don't go to Cleveland. Well, maybe it's better right now, but back at the time, Cleveland is not a great place. USC, Los Angeles, that's Chinese food. Anyway, so that is really one of the challenges. The other challenges I have is language, okay? I have pretty good TOEFL score. I can really pay a book, and I got good GRE, but those English just doesn't really work very well, okay? And I realized that I have to look at a person's face in order to understand what they're talking about. That means that when I'm in class, I cannot take note because I put my hands down write the notes, and then I'm not going to really hear what the professor say. Right? So I bring a recorder. The recorder back then is about this big, and extension cord across the room, and I recorded it. For every 1 hour's lecture, I would spend 3 hours to listen to the recording, transfer to my note. Well, it didn't take very long before some American student come to borrow my tape. And that's when I realized that I'm really not such an imposter. Everybody is in the same boat. And so that the kind of challenges, the kind of temptation that I sort of encountered, the new friend that I made, and other professor, is really what allows me to go through and got my PhD in biochemistry. And I just love the subject matter. So then it's time to look for a postdoc. Okay, and just sort of like good timing that I moved to Boston and get my postdoc in Massachusetts General Hospital. And here, if you look at my sort of journey here, this is abyss. It's a very, very competitive environment. I was totally unprepared for it. In Cleveland, I have a very, very protective, nurturing mentor. And in MGH, Mass General Hospital, I did not have. So I was kind of miserable there. And so then I started to really think that, well, why am I doing this? What do I really want to do? What can I actually do there? And then I remember that when I was at Case, that I actually enjoy being a TA. Now, many of my friends hate being TA. They think of it as an obligation. They try to get out. But I love it. And I asked for more. So I thought that, well, maybe I can do some teaching there. And it's because of that I sort of, applied for a position and got a job to be a sort of a tutor. They like to use a funky word, but really tutor means a instructional officer, kind of like a part-time adjunct lecturer here. And so I applied for that. And every Thursday evening, I will walk over to Harvard campus and hold classes with the undergraduate there. Now, my husband told me that at the time I still work in MGH, he said that I always come back from NGS totally exhausted. But once a week, every Thursday evening, when I walk over to teach and walk back, I was always energized. And so that is really a revelation to me to say that, hey, this is something that I may really like to do. But this is, after all, a new thing. I have been trained for, by then, almost 10 years to do research, right? So I continue to do research. And after I finished the postdoc at MGH, I got a job at Harvard University as an instructor. And there I actually co-wrote a grant and they were funded for Parkinson's disease, but I am not happy. And I still felt that this is an abyss. Then personal things that happened that I have to relocate to New York City. And to relocate to New York City, that I have to give up the grant I have at Tufts, even though initially I was sort of agreed that I can take part of the grant out there. And because of that, I actually lost an offer. They rescinded the offer because I said that, sorry, I don't have a grant. All right, so I worked at Columbia University Medical Oncology as a staff scientist. And this, unfortunately, I call it the death and rebirth. I was just unhappy there. And so I started to think that if I'm unhappy, what can I do? After all, this is what I was trained for. I didn't really know anything. I knew that I liked teaching, but what else can I do? Well, I look around and to see that is there any places that will focus more in teaching? And then I find out that this place called York College is part of the City University of New York. So I got a position as an assistant professor there in natural science department there. Now, this is really a major, major difference there between Columbia, which is an Ivy League institution, and York College, which is an open admission institution. But I felt really very good. I felt that at Columbia, I am a rich people's tax accountant. I'm providing service to save them money. But at York College, I am providing free tax cleaning. I am actually saving people's life there. I feel really very good about that. But there's a major challenge there for me. It is about 2 hours and 2 subway transfer to get there. And at that time, our department chair loved to have 8 o'clock meeting in the morning. So I had to leave by 6 a.m. And I had 2 young children in daycare and in preschool. So it was very difficult there. But I love it because that is a place that allows me to have education and science at the same time. And it turns out that doing science in an open admission sort of institution is actually very difficult, doesn't have enough infrastructure. But I tried along, I got some grant, I was going to that. But then I realized that I love education far more than doing research. So go back to really doing some soul searching. What is it that I really want to do? Why do I want to do it? And I've decided I really want to do more education. And I am ready to give up research. And that turned out to be really the scariest decision that I've made because I know, and everybody told me, once you get out of research, you will never be able to go in. You stay in research, you can always teach, but if you get out, you're not going to be able to come in. So what do I do, right? And so quoting Joseph Campbell again, he said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you see. This is a cave. This is actually a real cave. This is in Bronson Canyon. It's pretty close to where I live. And this is Batman. So if you watch a Batman movie, this is where Batman will come out. But this is a real cave. I look into the dark cave and I decided that in the dark cave is something that I really want. So scary as it is, I jump in. And then so that my next place is I went back to Columbia University, but this time is in the biology department. And I pick up the position as a master's program director in biotechnology. I completely say goodbye to research. Part of the agreement to take up the job is that I will not have any research. It was fine. It's scary. I didn't know what if I don't like it, but it was fine. So I worked there. So that's a complete, again, transformation, lots and lots of reward because my enthusiasm all things bioscience. When you are in the education part, we have to be really very, very broad. And this gives me an excuse to read very widely. And coming back to going back, the soul searching, looking at who I am, how I was, I knew even since I was, high school kid, I always have the thing I've been taught that I am those like Tao Yuanming said, 好读书不求甚解. That's me. I don't like to go deep. I like to see why. So it fit perfectly well with me. So that's a transformation, that's a reward. But then I really don't know anything about education. I was never trained about education, right? And so I went back to really get a master's degree in higher and post-secondary education. And I go to classes at 9, 3 years later, I get the degree. I know something more about that. And so then I go into realize that, yeah, that's what I want. So that when situation happened that I will be relocated again, moving from New York City to Los Angeles, there is no more soul searching for me to do because I already know what I want to do. I already know why I want to do it. And so the left is logistics, which is pretty easy. So I was offered both at UCLA and USC. I can just look at the logistics without really looking at the what and why. And I chose USC. So here that I'm at USC almost 10 years now, again, that I'm the program director for the translational biotechnology. And what I do is I teach. So this is an example. This is how our classes work. We sit on the round table, nobody can hide. And this is about the average size. Some class size are much smaller than that. Okay. And we also host a lot of seminars. We have a lot of outside invited speakers to come to really work with us. And when the speaker comes, we don't sit and look at, PowerPoint. We sit down in the round table. We talk about them. And of course, we have fun. These are the students. And so we have everybody write in their own language in the blackboard. I think that it's hard to see, but these are all different language to say hello from our students. And of course, this is a must. We have to hike up to the Griffith Observatory here is a Hollywood sign, and this is a statue of James Dean, and people bring their dog. So that's what we do, and others, obviously. So here is that, again, the conclusion is that I go through the whole thing, going through the known world, going into the unknown, lots of ordeal, in abyss, in death all the time, and eventually I got out of it. And now going to the world back, now I'm returned, I'm changed. And I wouldn't call myself master of anything, but I do feel that I am now comfortable. The old world, I know about that. The unknown world now become much more familiar. And I also know that I was able to really bridge science and education, and exactly going back to the initial part. What is the thing that I want to do? Why do I want to do? And that is really what I want. Okay. And so that is sort of my own experience there. And I would like to share with you that, how about you? If you are thinking about anticipating your hero's journey, not just tomorrow that you apply to school, but the whole thing, right? So you have a call to adventure, you want to, something that is really compelling you to really travel. How do you really go out to really, go through all the consideration? So these are the consideration I would suggest with you. So quoting Hector Garcia, he said that you want to think about what you love and think about what the world's need, and the overlap is the mission. When you look at what the world's need, you see that you want to see what you can be paid for, right? We all have to buy food, right? When you look at what you can pay for, you want to be paid a lot of money. So it's how do you overlap to what you are good at? Now, you can be good at something you can get paid for, but you don't want to be unhappy, right? So you need to overlap with what you love. And so the whole thing is that this 4 circles, they all have overlap there. Okay. And so for me, what you love is the most important thing. It trumps everything. What the world needs and what you're good at is also quite important, but you don't have to be there. You can really pick the circle, whichever circle that you sort of focus more, but you need all 4 of them. And the idea is that in the circle where everybody meet is really the reason for your being, right? And so this is where you are, and then you go from there. And so my suggestion, my sort of recommendation for you is find your reason for being, find your passion, do your soul searching, and you have to ask yourself, you are the only one who can answer. After you have the reason for being, the rest is just logistic. It will be easy. And I'm very happy to talk about logistic in the Q&A section there. And so there is it. Thank you very much. That is my email address. Feel free to contact me anytime. And later on in question that I welcome questions both in Mandarin and in English. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a very kind and interesting and inspiring presentation. Thank you so much, Professor Exo and Professor Carol. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and maybe we can start from our first question. And our first question is that in medical research, is there a direct connection between diet, immune system, and cancer? Thank you. Will there be?
Okay, maybe I can start the first part and then Carol can follow. So I think the question is there a connection between diet and cancer? Is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah, I think the short answer is yes. Obviously, the more complicated answer is that the precise connections are still being investigated. There are very important leads that have been found. For example, it has been found that people who eat a lot of red meat, for example, have a higher risk for cancer, and those who eat a lot more vegetables and less meat have a lower risk for cancer. These are kind of simplistic connections, and of course a lot more has to be investigated. The biome of the intestines is one of the new frontiers to be understood. What is the composition of the biome in your intestines, that influences the development of cancer? And of course, the biome is influenced by what you eat. So a little bit is known, and there is a lot that is unknown. And maybe, Carol, you have probably also some ideas in that regard. Would you like to say something?
Well, I agree with you completely, is that diet probably do have something to do with cancer. So it's many other things, and we don't really know about that. So, Axel mentioned about red meat and cancer, but we also know some other things that, the epidemiology study to really mention that culture who eat a lot of fermented food seem to have more stomach cancer, but I think that the research actually came out to say that a lot of those, it's really not the food per se, but other biomarker. So then the idea is that cancer is really very complex, that we don't know very much about that. So there are still a lot of questions to be answered. Very exciting field.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And the next question is, there's someone leave the message in our Zoom chat box. So maybe we can move to this one first. Yes. And thanks a lot to Axel and Carol. Could you please share which class you are teaching? And are there many Chinese students choose the area of medicine? I feel it is difficult for international students to choose the major related to medicine. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, of course. And so the class that I'm teaching, since it refers to this, my main course that I'm teaching is cell biology, and we touch upon cell biology basics and advanced cell biology, also how it relates to cancer. I mentioned earlier in my introduction, I showed a few photos, and I told you that the Cancer Center is a very big clinical center here and research center. So cancer research is very big here at USC. So we, in my classes, I often make a link to cancer. So when I teach cell biology, probably a third of it is also about cell biology of cancer. And in our classes, we make an effort to have active participation of students. And I think Professor Lin has shown great examples of relatively small courses where students sit together and work problems out themselves and find their way. In my course in cell biology, it's relatively large. It's usually 60 students, which for an undergraduate course, it's actually small. But for our graduate courses, 60 students is on the large side. So it's among the bigger classes here, but it's great teaching it. And moving on to why are there many Chinese students, or are there many Chinese students choose the area of medicine? Okay, so to distinguish between medicine and biomedicine, with regard to medicine, say medical students, for international students, it's very difficult to get into medical school as a medical student. It's a big challenge. It's complicated for various reasons. Now to get into biomedicine, say into a biomedical master's program or a biomedical PhD program, that's a lot easier. And as I mentioned earlier, for PhD programs, one of the qualifications that the admissions committee usually looks for is that students already have some sort of experience. But for Chinese students, it's not more complicated than for any other students, especially for our master's programs. For example, the master's program that I'm directing, which is molecular microbiology and immunology, we have many applicants that have no experience, hands-on experience with biomedical research, and that's okay. We teach them. We welcome them, we teach them, and some of them take it as a step toward subsequent PhD programs. Others, they go back to their home country. Others try to get into industry, and that's fine. So with regard to Chinese students, whether they choose the area of medicine, I would say in our master's programs, at least in my department, we have about half of our students are Chinese students. So it's a fairly large fraction. We have half Chinese students, maybe a few from India and a few from other countries, and of course, several students from the United States. I think, Carol, would you like to add to that from your perspective for the translational biotechnology?
Sure. I think it's quite similar. So first about the courses I teach. So I teach one course is really basic biotechnology, really the nuts and bolts of doing biotechnology. But I also teach other courses is really the strategy about developing new therapeutics there. And so, it's just different kind of thing. We're talking about translation. Class right now, about half a Chinese student, but it depends on the year. Sometimes we have more, sometimes we have fewer. And I would say that it is definitely not difficult for international students, Chinese or not, to choose a major related to biomedicine. Now, if you want to see patient, it's again logistically more difficult. But if you're interested in researching, in developing new therapeutic, in understanding how disease and body work, that is really a wonderful thing. And in fact, that if you read papers, international journal, you'll find out that there are lots and lots of people with the Chinese sounding name, other international student names. So that is really not a issue at all. I think that the evidence is that there are lots and lots of international students who did wonderfully, and we actually, the entire field of biomedicine relied on international students to work on that.
Yeah, this is, and I would like to add that our international students, obviously they come from different countries. That's why they are international students, which also means that they're very determined. Now, coming from a different country, studying abroad, that's a big challenge. Leaving your family behind, it's a big step. So students who do that, they know what they're doing usually. They're very determined. They don't do this just on a whim. So my experience with international students is really terrific. We have always great students, and it works out really, really well. And it kind of also leads me to the next questions by Charles Louis, who says, there are so many programs offered by our school, and this is his third time joining this webinar. Well, that's great. That's a terrific interest. Thanks so much, Charles. And all sounds so interesting. Any opportunities that we can do double majors in your school, or a focus on more than one area? Charles, this is a very interesting question, and it's also relevant, I think, for very many interested students. I'm glad that you think everything sounds so interesting, because I have been at USC and I know there's a lot of interesting stuff. And I wish I could be more involved in different types of research, just because there are so many opportunities here. Now, the beauty of some of our programs is that they overlap in areas. Okay, we don't restrict our students to do just one thing. Now, a double major is probably a challenge. It would be challenging. But I can tell you from my program that I'm directing, the molecular microbiology and immunology, even though it says in its title, molecular microbiology and immunology, it involves a lot more than that. We also do cancer research and carcinogenesis and aging, premature aging, vaccine development, virology. So just within our program, our one program, it's so broad that it overlaps with so many other areas that students have a lot of opportunities. And it depends a little bit on the program. Some programs, they require a certain coursework more than others, meaning in some programs, the coursework is more structured, where there's a guidance of, say, 75% of the courses are predetermined and are mandatory. In our program, for example, less than half of the coursework is mandatory. All the rest can be freely chosen from the many courses that are available. Okay, so there's really a big opportunity to pick based on the student's interest. And the same goes with those students who want to do hands-on research. We tell them what is available, and we actually don't mandate from them. We don't tell them, you have to go to that laboratory and work in that laboratory, get your thesis on that topic. No, we actually expect the students, come here, review what we have, expose yourself to different environments, lab environments, and then make a choice what you want to do, what type of research you would like to get involved, and then you choose and join a lab. All we wanted to see is that you engage yourself and that you become successful. Carol, would you like to add to that view?
Well, yeah, I think that you're right that it depends on the program. So for my program, the more the better. You want to do a lot more, and that's fine. Now, there is a visa consideration that you cannot stay in the United States forever and just keep taking courses. But there's really just a lot of area instead of double major that you may actually want to get 2 degrees, things like that. But yes, that the issue is always that there are so much wonderful things that eventually you have to choose. You cannot do all of them. If a child in candy store that, pick the one that you really like the most. And if after you try it, that you actually change your mind, the great thing about United States and USC definitely sort of really embody is that you are never stuck on something. We hope that you love what you're doing, but if not, move on to the next thing. I mean, you're looking at somebody who moved on so many times. I am so happy now. I was so happy that I didn't stick with what I initially was trained for. So I think that is really perfectly good. Just think about that. Talk to as many people as you want, and somehow assemble the program that is really the best for you. Should I go on to that? There's another question about sort of more about translational and about biotechnology there. What kind of research area, and if you want to go into PhD program, what kind of research area or research opportunity is. And I would say that for translational biotechnology, it's really very broad. Basically, bench to bedside in the United States, it's a 15 years, $3 billion enterprise. It is talk about so many things that you can do. So anything that you're interested in will be just fine. And if you want to really go into the PhD program, the admission want to see that you have some experience. It doesn't matter that much about which particular area. It's really more about the research life, the ability to ask questions and to answer your question. Those are important. So my suggestion will be ask yourself again, what do you like the most? Do that. You will be happy and you will do a much better job that way. Like so, you want to?
Yeah, I agree with that, of course. And I'm also already looking at the next question, where it says, does USC have professors in the PIPS program who are proficient in the antibody engineering field? I think the short answer is yes. The longer answer is it depends a little bit exactly what you're looking for, but antibody engineering, of course, also has to do with the exciting field of CAR T cells and cancer therapy with chimeric antigen receptor T cells, which is exciting. There are several people working on that, including doing translational work where they link their research with patients, where it's already applied to patients here at the cancer center. So the answer is yes, this type of research is also going on.
Thank you. And we have some questions also on our live streaming platforms. And our next question is, hi, Professor Carol. You are the one study bachelor first, then master and PhD explore step by step. How do you see the undergraduate student jump into the cave to apply PhD program directly? What is your advice? Thank you.
Okay. So I actually is one of those who jump into the cave. So I did go directly from bachelor's degree to the PhD program there. And I got my master, I think like 15 years, 20 years after I had my PhD in a complete different field. But I think that to go directly from undergraduate to the PhD is that you really need to have research experience on that. If you don't have any, then it will be difficult to go directly. If you don't have any research experience, then it's really sort of like a very natural that you get a master's degree first, then you can really pick up your research experience. And also that unfortunately that PhD program in United States doesn't really know that much about a lot of undergraduate institutions abroad in China. We know a few of the famous ones, right? But beyond those, like the 3 famous ones, we don't really know that much. So it is kind of hard to really prove your credential. And so that if you come to USC, and to take a master's degree, there are multiple advantage of that. Is one that you gain more knowledge, you get your US credential, you get your research experience, and you will be so much more stronger in applying to the PhD program. But it is really still not required, again, that if you have very good, meaningful research experience in the undergraduate, you can definitely and welcome to really apply directly to the PhD program, and many do, and they will accept it. Axel, did I get it right?
Yes, of course. And I think the idea of doing a master's program for those students who are very serious about thinking about PhD programs has advantages. First of all, the PhD program is a much longer undertaking. So it can happen that people get into a PhD program and they find, well, this is maybe not quite what I expected. And then changing course, it takes effort. Whereas a master's program is a lot shorter. It gives you terrific exposure to what future PhD programs look like. And then when you apply to a PhD program, you know what to expect, what you get yourself into, and it's a more solid long-term decision. The other issue is that even with the master's program, even though they are shorter, you still have lots of career opportunities. Even if you do not move on to a PhD program, a master's program in itself, of course, is a complete degree and a complete, well-rounded education that can serve many purposes.
Exactly. If I may sort of join there, is that I was talking about your soul searching, right? You have to ask yourself, what do you want to do, and what if you don't know what you want to do? Right? Most of us actually don't know exactly what we want to do. Then the master's degree, it's really a great way of doing it. If you do the master's degree and find you love it, you're on your way further. Maybe you finally love it and you realize, and again, that at least the program I do, that we really emphasize it in many different career paths. In fact, that more than half of the students come to the master's degree with no intention of going to PhD. They don't want to get a PhD for some reason. they want to get a job and they can go on that way. So, I think that master's degree is really, it offers a lot of opportunity for you to really try it out, to really sort of jack up your credential, and just wonderful things there. And you can use it as a stepping stone to the PhD program, or you can use a master's degree as really your end goal, launch your career from there, which is really, again, like I said, that about half the students in my program really want to do it that way.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And the next question is, I think professors have met a lot of Chinese students. Regarding they adjusting to the environment and about their language, how do you think they typically met some challenges? And what advice can you, give for these aspects? Thank you.
Okay, maybe I get started with this. One thing that often surprises me is when international students arrive in Los Angeles for the first time, and this is especially true for Chinese students. Many of them already have connections and they know people already. And I'm always surprised about that. And it's great. It's great to see. And of course, if you know people already, that's tremendously helpful to get settled and find your way around. And as you know, Los Angeles, we have a Chinatown here. We have other parts of the city that are primarily populated by Asian populations. So we're very multinational, and I think the Chinese population is among the biggest here in Los Angeles. So beyond hopefully getting some pleasure by finding popular food places, which we talked about earlier, seeing a lot of fellow countrymen here is probably very helpful to get acquainted with everything. In addition, a lot of students from different countries coming here. So USC puts in much effort to make sure that everybody feels welcome and is taken care of. You will not land at Los Angeles International Airport without any guidance. USC will make sure you are connected to Chinese societies if you want to, and to housing when you come here, how to find housing, how you get transport. All of this is well organized by USC, and they make sure, that people from all countries find their way around and are not left alone. What do you think, Carol? Isn't it true?
Absolutely true. I think that, I've been through so many different institutions, and my own children gone to different institutions. USC is by far the most nurturing, most sort of guidance. USC have so many faculty, special advisors that to really help students to really adjust that. But I hope I'm not going to get into trouble. I'm going to really provide a little bit of the contrarian there. Is like, if you want to hang out only with the Chinese, why do you need to come to USC? And so my sense is that it's there. We have the community, but don't spend all your time only with the people where you can speak language very quickly, because if you do so, you're not going to be sort of getting really the most that the USC and the US can really offer you. So you want to strike the balance. And to be honest, I think that some of my student, the language could be a little better. And the reason why the language is not a little better is because they don't have to speak English. They can speak Chinese. They study in Chinese, everything. I hear their discussion about their research project, and they are all in Chinese. So it is very convenient. It's comfortable. It's a little easier, but that is really not the best way to learn. So I would encourage everybody to understand that you are not going to be pushed into the water sink or swim. We are here for you. But on the other hand, get out and take the opportunity to really learn something new. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's very informative. Yeah, and I think because of the limited time, so this will be our last question. So our last question is, just as Professor Carol, you mentioned, you have lived and studied and worked in the 4 major cities in USA, but at the end, you chose Los Angeles. So do you mind sharing your experience of why you why you chose the Los Angeles and settled down? Thank you.
Okay. Well, I wish I can tell you that something so compelling for me to come to US. Unfortunately, it's really not so kind. It's just that my husband got a job in Los Angeles, and so I come over here. But what I can say is that after I moved to Los Angeles, I realized that this is really a wonderful place, and I was so happy that I end up here. And I end up here even without having to really choose to come here. And for me is that, so the 4 different places that I have been, they are all very different. They all have their strength, they all have their quirky things. And to me, I still feel that the most important thing is to really see what you can get the most out of it. And I felt that I really, enjoy so much about this city, the weather, the food. Okay, I won't talk about traffic, but traffic in Boston and New York is equally bad. And the people. I love the way that people react. You have this Southern California mentality that we are here to work hard, we are here to hustle, but we are also here to enjoy life. And I think that that is really the wonderful thing about Los Angeles.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And actually, there are some audience that like soul searching is the most important one for soul searching is food and music. So that do professors mind share your best Chinese food? Thank you.
My best Chinese food, my goodness. Well, my food is the food that I like the most is the kind of food that my mother cook. It's really very, very home cooked. I'm from Taiwan, and Taiwanese cooking tend to be kind of bland, and so I like that. But a lot of time here, that just a trick for you. If you want dim sum Chinese food, take a little further out, go to St. Gabriel, the best food that you can get around there. Near USC and near the health sciences campus, maybe not so much of the real authentic one, but you don't have to go too far. You definitely do not need to go as far as when I was in Cleveland.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, my number one, I have a favorite Chinese food, and I have a Chinese food that I do not like. My favorite Chinese food are dumplings. And I have to admit that chicken feet, not those crooked 3 things that come on a plate, even though some of my Chinese friends, they have tried to convince me it's the best there is. I think many years ago, I took a bite, and since then, I've never touched them again. So that's my story with Chinese food.
Thank you.
I think you should try it again. Chicken feet are wonderful.
Maybe one day. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Also thanks to our audience for joining the event until the end. Yes, our audience, they are always the greatest form of support for us. So I do hope, they enjoyed our event today. And once again, thank you to our guest speakers, Professor Exo and Professor Carol, for your kind, informative, and inspiring presentation. So for the last part of our session, could you please give some advice or suggestion to our potential students? Thank you.
Yes, maybe I can get started. I think in the big picture, as we have mentioned before, it's important to to think very carefully about what you want to do. And if it's research, that's great. If it's teaching, that's great. Or if it's one of the other many other things outside of biomedical research, it's great too, as long as you think you will like it and pursue it. The challenge is, though, that sometimes things change and you think, I really want to do that. And then you do it. And then maybe a year later, 2 years later, you find out, oh, I'm not so sure. It's okay. No, it's okay, because you can change your ways, you can change your path and do other things. So my number one advice probably would be to be open-minded and stay flexible, and don't be disappointed if things don't quite work out, and feel open to new avenues and new changes.
I so agree. And, I think that totally agree with the Excel's mention that think carefully and go for it. So my thing is basically in continuation is to be brave. Don't be afraid of the unknown. And very important, don't be afraid of making mistake. Don't be afraid of failure. Because if you never make mistake, you never fail at anything, it just means that you haven't pushed far enough, that you haven't tried anything worthwhile. And so, just look at whoever that you admire, look at them, and to see that how many of them never made many mistakes, how many of them never failed at anything. I guarantee you that none. Anybody who really is achieving of anything, all have to go through them. And so my advice for everybody is that don't be afraid. You'll be okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for today's everything.